Welcome to Behind the Backline, the podcast where we chat with merchants, brands, and industry professionals in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space about their products, services, industry trends, stories, and more. Join us now as we dig into the stories behind our favorite backline gear.
Welcome to episode 12 of Behind the Backline. I'm Matt Jacoby of Octave Media, and today I'm speaking with Brian Wampler of Wampler Pedals. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
So you are the first episode, a little backstory, the first episode that I did not meet at NAMM this year, which is kind of cool. I actually heard about Wampler Pedals by accident in a book by someone everybody here may or may not know, Gary Vaynerchuk, his latest book called Crushing It. And shortly after, LinkedIn connected or recommended you to me by accident. It was not related by any means, but anyway, yeah. So I kind of wanted to let everyone know about who you are and what Wampler Pedals does.
Sure. So I am a guitar player in my 40s. Means that I started when I was 7, and I, like all guitar players do, we all are unhappy with our sound, right? So I'm growing up, I'm trying to sound like Eddie Van Halen or whoever, and I'm just not getting that sound. And so I'm buying pedals, I'm begging my parents to buy me a guitar for my birthday, a new guitar for my birthday. I'm working a job in the summer trying to save up to buy a new amplifier. Did that, all through these years. And I worked a series of different jobs, mostly in the construction industry, while I really just wanted to play guitar. I actually thought I was going to be a musician. I was going to Nashville and Tennessee and trying to play with bands and going to quote unquote make it big. And in the meantime, I taught myself how to modify and build guitar pedals. And so I would bring stuff with me to the gigs, and people would try them out there and oh wow, that's cool. Can you make me one? And that, through a means of some other stuff I'm sure we'll get into here in a minute, that turned into a business. The more people kept asking me, the more I was able to kind of quit my construction jobs and really focus on building guitar pedals.
Awesome. Yeah, I never had this inspiration or hey, I'm going to go build drums. But yeah, to be that ambitious, hey, this is really cool. That's super noble. So and I learned really through it. I learned about it on the internet. So, 2001 or whatever, I found out that there were groups of these DIYers, the do-it-yourselfers, that would not only modify existing pedals like Boss or Ibanez or whatever, but they would also make their own. And so I kind of got in that community, learned everything I could about electronics, read a bunch of books, and experimented a lot. And things grew a little at a time. I self-published a few books about how to build pedals, how to modify pedals. And I really aimed it towards the guitar player because at that time, in general still, a lot of books on electronics are pretty heady. They're full of math. A lot of the physics behind how stuff works. And as a guitar player, you just want to know, how do I give this tube screamer more bass? Tell me what to put in it to give it more bass or give it more gain or make it sound different or better and so on. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote these series of books kind of for that guitar player. So he doesn't need to know how to do the mathematical formula to get more bass. He just knows, oh, I just replaced this capacitor with this capacitor and I have more bass. That's cool. And so I kind of had more of an awareness, and this is 2003, 4, 5, and that I created more of an awareness around the whole guitar player industry. Not the whole industry, but most of the guitar players are online talking about sound, and really did it from a point of trying to help them. Yes, I was selling a book, but I also was doing a heck of a lot of posting on forums, which were huge at that time. Mm-hmm. This is way before Facebook, obviously. Yep.
And, just really talking to people, answering a ton of emails, and just trying to help people, trying to build my awareness among guitar players. And that really helped build a dedicated customer base for today. And not that that's a tactic or a ploy. It came from a good place. I literally want to help people. So even still today,
I'll communicate with people back and forth when they ask me how, what should I do on this certain pedal? And even though it's not your brand, what should I do here to get this sort of sound? I'll still communicate back and forth with them as long as I have time, just for the pure sake of helping them. But the side benefit is it really creates devoted customers.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing it correct that way. I mean, the fact that you've been doing it that long and now it's a fad, it's trendy to be helpful over salesy. The people who have been doing that long term are benefiting the most because, people are now just catching up to that being, it's the hot new thing. However, if you've been doing it forever, then it just comes naturally and you were ahead of the curve. So. Right.
I mean, even it's in some industries, it's way more accepted. So of course, if you're selling internet products, internet marketing products, then people know how that works, right? But if you own a painting business or you're a dentist or something like that, the tendency is that they use Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. They're using it to say, hey, here's my product or service, buy it. Yeah. Please contact me and buy it now. And you got to romance a person. You can't just jump into a relationship on that first date and ask them to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
Generally. Sometimes you can, I guess, speaking, but most of the time you got to romance a gal.
Yeah. Sometimes that works. Most of the time it doesn't.
At least not. It works in Vegas, but outside of there, not really anywhere.
So if your target market is in Vegas, feel free to pitch all you want. We will clean your teeth tomorrow if you want. Otherwise, don't try it.
Exactly.
So have you always dreamed of owning your own business, or was this all by accident?
No, I was the guy in high school. I wasn't really like much of a troublemaker, but I just sucked at high school. And kind of by choice. I just refused to do anything that wasn't interesting. So like in my biology class, I think I got like 2% my senior year. That was like 2% of a positive grade. So that was a way low F. I'd sit in class and read Guitar Magazine. And it's funny. I've actually bumped into that teacher before. And I'm like, I told you I didn't need this class. He's, that's true story. So, in class, he hated me because I wouldn't do anything. And I mean, I didn't cause any problems. I was just like, no, I didn't turn in my homework. Why not? Didn't want. And I'm like, and I told him, I said, I'm never going to ever. I have no interest in this. I'm never going to use it. And if I do, I'll read a book about it. But for now, I'm going to read this Guitar Magazine about Eddie Van Halen or Yngwie Malmsteen. So, I got out of high school, and even during high school, a little bit, like I would mow lawn. I would knock on businesses' doors and say, hey, I'd kind of sweep your parking lot for $50 or whatever. Or can I pull weeds? Stuff like that. I was always kind of more entrepreneurial based. When I did have jobs, they generally didn't like me as an employee. I'm a pretty bad employee because I just like to do things my own way, and I'm kind of stubborn. I'm like, no, that's going to waste a lot of time, and I think my time would be better suited if I do it a different way. So, but if you're working at Burger King or something like that, they really don't want you to go outside of their methods of making a burger.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no. I mean, here's an example. So I worked at Pizza Hut. I'm sure most people are probably familiar with Pizza Hut, the big pizza chain.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like you put this amount of pepperoni on it, this amount of cheese, like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not how you make a good pizza. Let me show you how to make a good pizza. And so I'd load it. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm making an awesome pizza. That's what I'm doing. They're like, no, you can't do that with profits. You're driving our profits down. And I would say, if you make a better pizza, they'll come back. You could always raise your...
Yeah. You were way ahead of the curve on that. I mean, quality over quantity, value over one-time sales.
But I mean, if you're a chain, there's a procedure for everything. That's the way our modern systemized education teaches. The side round, I guess. I don't want to make too many people mad, but that's not the world we live in anymore. So, we sell $200 pedals, and yes, you can buy $30, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
It's like, you can buy 100, but it's not going to stand up next 85 cymbals around a double bass drum and, 14 toms and fireworks whenever you hit the hi-hat. Well, I don't know much about drum stuff, obviously.
It's all right. I understand. I don't know much about guitar stuff, so it works out well. Well, cool. So like out of the, all the self-teaching and all of the, as far as you've come, What would you say is your biggest accomplishment in terms of like best pedal or just, best electronics project that has become a product?
Sure. So, I mean, we have several different popular products. It always changes because guitar players find they're always looking for a better sound, a different sound, a newer sound, or they may just get bored and decide, hey, I want to swing by the guitar center and grab a new pedal because I just got paid and sounds fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like right now we have a pedal called the Tumnus, which is based off of a very limited pedal that sells for like $3,000 or $4,000. So we had a lot of customers that had just asked us, like, hey, can you make a cheaper, more accessible version of this pedal? And I don't like to do a lot of stuff like that. In this case, it was just a huge gap in the market. So we did that. It's been one of our most successful pedals so far. We have another pedal that's called the Ego Compressor. And it's just a really good compressor that's really, a lot of guys in the country music, Brad Paisley, Keith Urban, and just guys in the popular mainstream world, they use that compressor like crazy. They love it. And so we're real popular like in that area with that particular pedal. But then there's other pedals, like we have a high gain distortion called the Dracaris, and that would be more popular like in the LA scene, because it's two totally different types of players. So and that fluctuates. Like next year this time, it will probably be totally different pedals.
Yeah. I feel like guitar players change pedals like some people change underwear. I would hope anyway.
Well, most
from week to week or day to day. I don't know.
But yeah, we hope they're changing underwear.
Exactly. Well, it's really cool that you I don't know if you want to call it finding validation and knowing that you have people all the way from the national circuit all the way down to local bands who are using your product and finding value in the sounds. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's when the first few famous people started using it, I was pretty starstruck.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, it is pretty surreal. Like the guys that you're growing up listening are now calling you, asking for advice. So that was really cool. You do, I will say, you do get used to it. You get used to being around quote unquote famous. They generally fall into two, really down to earth, just like your next door neighbor. They just happen to have a lot more than you.
Yeah.
Or the guys that, or gals, let it go to their head and they believe they are way better than you could ever possibly. And I've ran into both types, but I think honestly I like dealing with high profile artists. To me, honestly, what's the coolest is whenever it's, a guy that's spent 3 months of hard work overtime to buy a pedal that he wanted and he bought yours. He sacrificed a lot just to get that pedal. That to me, that's way cooler than, insert your favorite artist name here who just went on Sweetwater.com or GuitarCenter.com or wherever and bought 85 pedals at a hotel while they're staying in a hotel room because they're bored.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like them both, but for different reasons.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it kind of keeps it fresh, I would imagine, not having to, I got stuck with the comfortable customers. I don't get any challenges or conflicting customers who like to throw me a wrench occasionally or anything like that.
Well, we do have that occasionally, but generally not always. I mean, sometimes we get a lot of not a lot, but we do get some customer questions. They're like, my pedal don't work. So start from the very beginning. I'm like, all right, so let's start here. Is your guitar plugged into the right side? Yes. Okay. Is your guitar amp on? Oh crap! I didn't even think about that. How did I do? You're like, okay, that's all right. It's all right. It happens to us all.
As I say, I have a computer background, and typically the first question tech support asks is it turned on? So.
Unfortunately, that's true. I mean, just it's the easiest thing. It's the easiest thing. Dead battery. Like it keeps sounding worse and worse over it. It's time to change the battery. I was sitting here thinking there was something wrong with the pedal. But it's it happens. I'm sure I do that I'm sure I do that to some companies. Are called like, dude, change the batteries in your remote. That's why you're on. Okay.
Now, as a drummer, you always see the guitar player setting up and everything. And before I realized there was a battery in them, I just had assumed that pedals work because they're in the line of signal. So I just was like, oh, it just, plug it into the amp and everything is kind of like connected through like that source of power where it's just like, oh, there's not actually a power source, but if it's part of the circuit, it just works. So, there's a time even if I don't play the instrument, I would have even not considered a battery early on in the day. So.
Well, there are some that work that way.
Okay.
But, and I don't want to get too techno nerdy. That's because it's running off what they call phantom power, and there's a cable connected from that to like a PA.
Okay.
And that will provide power for that pedal. But generally guitar players, for the most part, aren't connecting that. You tend to find that like in bass pedals or acoustic guitar pedals.
Gotcha. And that is where I guess I was right and wrong, but I just didn't know it. So I don't see a lot of drum pedals be powered by anything, of course, except my feet. So
that's true. And I've tried to think of ways I could sell pedals to drummers.
Oh yeah, that would be. I think your electronic drum market might have some room for it, but I don't know if acoustics are good.
That's true.
So at what point in your life did you kind of have that aha passion moment where it's like, I can actually marry my entrepreneurial spirit with my passion for guitars?
Well, I was working construction. I started out, well, I didn't start out, but at the time I was working for guys that would buy these old houses, would contract me to just basically go inside. And the whole time I did that, I was basically hating life, wishing I was at home playing guitar. Mm-hmm. So, when I did go home, I would just spend all of my extra time and a good portion amount of the time I should be sleeping, reading up on guitar pedals and how to modify them and how the electronics work and all that kind of nerdy stuff. And at that time, it was kind of a selfish thing. I was trying to take the pedals that I had at the time and make them sound better or different or what have you. And as I figured it out, like I was saying, I would go play with people in other bands, and they would like my sound, or they would say, "Wow, that's a king pedal," and they would buy one off me. I'd make one for them, and then they'd tell their friends. And I was also involved, like I was saying, in online forums where we'd all talk about guitar gear, and so I'd answer a lot of questions that people had, and they'd inquire about what I was doing with my modified pedals, and that would build more customers as well, because they would ask if I'd modify theirs or build them something. Music stores then started getting a hold of me asking if I would sell them pedals. So I created a line, and I started selling to more retailer-based businesses. So, the mom and pop store down the road that sells guitar strings, guitars, I'd reach out to those guys and see if I could put my pedals in their store. And it just started growing very organically. I was doing a lot of email marketing. In the day when MySpace was such a thing.
Oh yeah.
I was doing a lot of stuff on MySpace. And when I say a lot of stuff, it's not ads. I was just communicating with a lot of people. So I would just jump into conversations and just talk to people about problems they were having, or just kind of being a part of the community and trying to provide as much value to them as I could. And really, more than anything, that's what has helped us grow, is just being that company that is not focused on trying to sell. Instead, we're just trying to focus on relation one at a time.
And you got it. You guys are doing it right. I mean, as a content marketer myself, it's all about the relationship. It's what does the customer need, want, benefit, everything that you can to help them before you try to even attempt to sell them something is just, that's perfect. So I'm glad it's working out for you. You guys are like a case study for the content marketing industry.
Yeah, it was kind of odd. I mean, it was cool, but I think it was odd for Gary Vaynerchuk. I got the chance to meet him. And was talking to him about how I read the book Crush It, and it really kind of changed a lot of the things we were doing, where I was trying to do everything myself. Mm-hmm. And after reading that book, I'm like, you know what? I really need to focus on the things that I'm good at and just outsource everything that I suck at. So at that time, I had some employees. We were building them in my garage, and I'm like, okay, this is not my strength is not at managing a bunch of people building guitar pedals. So I need to find a company that's really good with that locally here, and let them build the guitar pedals. Let me focus on what I'm good at, which customer communication and making, I hate to say inventing, because it's not really, but coming up with new electronic ideas for the market.
Cool. So So you stopped actually doing some of the physical electronical work in favor of the relationship building?
Well, I design a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Which means that, there's it's hard to describe over a mic, of course, but there's this device called a breadboard that you can kind of arrange electronic circuits. You can plug a guitar through it. Instead of soldering, it's kind of you can pull out a part, put a new part in really quickly and easily to get different sound, versus having to build something and solder it and drill holes and mount it and all that stuff. So I create the actual circuit first. Then I take the schematic, which is kind of like a house blueprint, and it's completely spec'd out. So it says you have to use these type of nails. You have to use, this type of board from this specific place this year of that, this lot of that bulk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it kind of feels like a development website or like a testing ground that's kind of temporary before you actually create the final product.
Right. So It's just, basically we're just building a prototype, and then we tell the company that built it, that's here local, we just tell them, okay, here's exactly how we want it built. Here's where everything comes from. Here's exactly how it's put together. Here's exactly what the graphics look like. We'd specify every little tiny bit of it. And then, they have 50 people that make electronic stuff. So they build it for us and they ship it out for us.
That does sound a heck of a lot less stressful and gives you that creative freedom to still tinker and figure out what you're coming up with next, and then let the quote unquote mass production happen elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just, I figured out during that course, I'm really bad at managing a large group of people. That's just not my strong suit at all.
Got it.
I'm way more of a creative, the customer communication part that's the part I enjoy. And I mean, we call it marketing. I kind of just call it communicating, because that's really what you're doing. You're communicating a message to your potential customer or your customer that really kind of hits them in the chest, that resonates with them. Mm-hmm. So rather than, we talked about the commercial thing, rather than trying to sell them something and hope that they press the buy button, you're engaging them almost as a friend. Yeah. Because you've talked to them so much, whether it's through all the YouTube videos we do or all the podcasts we do, or, all the tweeting, all the Instagramming, like all that. You've talked to them so much that you really kind of have this relationship with them. Mm-hmm. They know you like they know their neighbor almost, because you're just always talking. Whether it's, I say talking in air quotes because you don't really talk on it.
No, we just go back to, I think Instagram is actually taking us full circle all the way back from caveman drawings right back to visual communication. So we'll just full circle.
Exactly. That's a good point.
Well, cool. So one quick last question. How long does it typically take one of your pedals to go from concept to final product?
Oh, it really differs on the product. There's been some where I sat down, created something that I thought was an hour. Like, yes, this is awesome. And then there's other ones that I've worked on for a couple of years, and I'm like, that's just not it. That's just not it. No, I'll set it aside for a week and revisit it with a fresh mind, a fresh set of ears, and work on it a little bit more. And I'm like, closer, but still not there. So there's been some that we've worked on for several years. There's been some that took me less than to come up with. And then, like I said, everything outside of that, once I have the design done and all the specifics, then that's really up to the company to apply soldering iron to circuit and make it happen. Cool.
Well, that is nice. I mean, to know that there's no every 4 months we come out with a new product. It's all about you guys' level of creativity, where what's creating those brain blocks versus, the ones that come instantly. It's that creative process is just all over the board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do try to come out with something about once every quarter.
Okay.
Because you still got to stay relevant.
Yeah.
If you don't put out new products, then honestly, people kind of forget about you a little bit. You kind of, not that they really truly forget. They just stop. You stop being in their minds of something they can buy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we do constantly put out new stuff, but since 85% of my time is spent creating new stuff, that's not a problem. So like right now, I'm sitting on 30 or 40 different designs that we'll come out with eventually, maybe. But it's just stuff that I've created, and it's there waiting for whenever the time's right to release.
That's cool. And it almost feels a little less stressful, at least to me, that you're only, shooting for 4 new products a year, where it's, you kind of have a timeline. It's not like you're rushing to get something out every month or every week. Right. You kind of have a little bit of a, it takes time, or you have time to built in to release one and have a little bit of a marketing push or do, whatever your communication building. And you kind of got that cycle built out.
Right. Well, there's a couple different models in our pedal industry. So you do have the guys that sell mostly direct to consumer. And so for those guys, they may actually come out with something new every week, but it'll be more like limited numbers. So they'll come out with product A, but we're only building 50 of them. And then the next week it's like product B, but we're only building 25 of these. And so that can be pretty profitable. But since we mainly sell to retailers, and we do sell direct to consumer a little bit as well, but for the most part, we're selling to just a lot of retailers all over the world. So with them, it's actually a problem when you come out with too much chili, because it's, they have their own marketing engine as well. So whenever they get a new product from you, they spend a good amount of time, making their own videos, doing their own content marketing, all that sort of thing.
Very true.
And so if you send them a new product this week and another new one next week, it doesn't really give them enough time to get it in the system and get it in the hands and the minds of their. So that kind of creates a problem in a model like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what your distribution chain is used to or expecting of you, and if you're a fast producer or more of a creative spaced out producer. So
right, and there's room for both, really. I mean, there's a lot of people that build pedals now, more and more all the time, and they'll build a couple and sell them on eBay or Reverb.com or like that. Are you familiar with Reverb by chance?
I am. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So they'll build a handful of something that they just created in their garage or whatever, and sell them on eBay. And you can make a good living doing that as well. I know a lot of people that do. I think for us, we started out doing that, and it just changed. I just noticed that I'm trying to think of exactly why I did it. I guess the best reason, and even though it's not a real good reason, is in my gut. It just felt like it was the right thing for us to do. I wanted to reach as many people as possible, and that seemed like the way to do it.
No, that makes sense. They always say follow your gut or follow your passion, and whatever feels right, usually ends up being the right thing.
Yeah, it's allowed me to stay at home and play guitar all day.
In the end, there was no way to convince that biology teacher that you were going to use it. So.
No, but he retired, and he does handyman work now. So, and we have an office building. And so one time he came over to do some handyman work, and his name is Mr. Guy. I said, Mr. Guy, I told you I didn't need that biology class. And he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, you're right.
Earlier, I'd you came up with a good idea there in terms of education going down the road of being customizable, because then again, you have to know what you want to do in life by the time you're in 7th grade, but that may or not be realistic. But I don't want that biology class because I'm not going to be a biologist, so what's the point?
And I hope I don't go too far off topic for this. I firmly believe that the education, at least here, is going to radically.
Oh, I would agree.
We're still kind of teaching kids for the Industrial Revolution when we really need to teach information.
Mm-hmm.
So like we just talked about, it's completely possible for you to make a small product in your garage, sell it on a handful of websites, direct to consumer, and make a good living. Probably better than you're going to make sitting in some cubicle somewhere trying to sell insurance.
Exactly.
We don't really take kids, figure out, oh, you're really great at drawing, so we need to put you in more things that help support your creativeness rather than put you in something that makes you want to poke your eyes out because you're bored. It's hard to teach people how to be a mechanic by starting out with a book that teaches all the different types of wrenches, what all they can be used for, all the different types of screwdrivers, what all they can be used for, when they were invented, what kind of metals they're made out of. Instead, it's way better to say, here's how we fix a lawnmower. Oh, wait, we're going to need a screwdriver. By the way, here's a screwdriver if you've never seen. This goes in this type of screw, so we're going to need to take the screw off. So let's use this screwdriver and take this. We don't teach that way. But if we did, we would have kids that were way more into
I agree. It's very cookie cutter, and we don't. It's like try to figure out what they're good at, and I even do that with my kids. I'm like, what are you steering towards? You're only 6, but what are you steering towards? So, yeah, and you know, I can see where that's going to shift, and it makes a lot of sense. So, because I was an average student myself, but I never really was a fan of being an employee either. So.
Right. And I mean, I think even if you don't really know how to phrase it as a young, I think you kind of know inside yourself, like, I hate the feeling of being constricted with someone looking over my shoulder, you know? And if we can get kids to recognize that, and if we can start teaching them how to go in a direction that they're not going to have that, then I think that's going to be way more effective than us telling everyone has to get in a line. Everyone has to go here, read this book, and learn all this stuff all at the same time and all at the same time.
I agree. And with all the entrepreneurial people out there these days, and the shift already in mindset and the way that, you know, people are going, I think that this is actually still on topic because of your story. The fact that, you know, you can do anything that you're passionate about, regardless of how well or how bad you did in school. It's all in you already. You just have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I really firmly believe that. I mean, you know, I remember my parents telling me, when I was younger playing video games, you'll never be able to make a living out of that. Really? Let's look at the world now. How big is the video game market now?
Weird and crazy is kind of, it's creepy how you that's changed, but.
And my second favorite part is you can't use a calculator. You're not going to have a calculator at your disposal all the time. Really? Let's see how that's worked for us.
Now it's in my pocket every day.
Exactly. So, you know, and not to beat a dead subject, with my employees, if I had them, if they insisted on handwriting out big math problems to solve, an engineering problem, I'd probably fire them because it's wasting my time.
Yeah.
You know, like, use a calculator. Don't write this out.
And with all the shift and stuff in the education system going to STEM, you know, that's right up your alley. You know, everyone's like, well, the kids need to focus more on science, tech, you know, math and engineering, and that's the way things are going. Hopefully that in itself is shifting us more towards information versus industrial age.
Right. I think, so to me, I look at STEM and I think, you know what, we need a STEAM model. We need to build arts there.
There you go.
And not necessarily, that doesn't mean like painting a painting. That means that if you're artistic, you know, like a creative, then you can start a YouTube video and you can make money off that YouTube. And you could build a customer base off that YouTube. And you can expand just simply by providing your audience provide more than what they expect of you.
I think you're onto something. I think we need to start a STEAM website project and push that acronym now. Well, awesome. Now, this has been fun. I just wanted to have you share what your website is so everyone can find out more about your pedals.
Sure. Our website is wamplerpedals.com. If you happen to do the social media stuffs, then just type in, you'll find Twitter, whatever.
Cool.
Hello.
And we'll share some of those links in the show notes too, so people can easily find it. So,
perfect.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for listening to Behind the Backline today, brought to you by Octave Media, an inbound marketing agency focused on helping music merchants develop an automated solution to increase website sales. You can find Octave Media at www.octave.media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or Google Play Music to learn more about great products and companies in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space. And be sure to leave a review to let us know what you thought of today's episode. We encourage you to share us with your friends and colleagues via social media, and we'll see you next time. Take care.